Hi everyone, how you doing today? It's great to see a lot of people come back today. This place is still very, very full, and we still have a lot of exciting conversation and presentations to get through. So at this time, I would like to invite to the stage Alma Chandrasekharan, Cass Parthasarathy, Kristin Lauter, Krystal Lau, Munjal Shah, and Shah McGunigal. So as you all are aware, we have a very broad and diverse audience here today. So we have decision makers across UT system, IT leadership, researchers, clinicians, IT professionals, students, and faculty members. Today we wanted to hear from our industry partners, and we've asked them to produce a quick 6-minute lightning talk that they feel would resonate with this audience. We gave them a very particular goal. And the idea was to spark ideas, collaborations, and anything that can help inspire turning health data and AI into real-world impact. Whatever they think was going to be relevant and impactful to this particular audience, right? So at this time, I would love to introduce to the stage Alma Chandrasekharan from Microsoft.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everyone. It's really an honor to be here today with all of you, representing Microsoft, but also to share all of your passion for healthcare and to really commit to AI to improve our health system. I'm part of Microsoft, the health data platform team, specifically focused on healthcare and life sciences. I've been very fortunate to travel the globe and participate in healthcare across the globe. My passion is truly for data and to build systems that connect providers, health systems, and most importantly, our patients. We're going to talk about 4 things, talking about impact. So as a little girl, I remember my sister used to often flip to the last page of the book. Whether it was a mystery novel or anything, she wanted to know what the end was all about. So that's where I'm going to start my story. Then we'll talk about how data is truly the fuel for AI. And then how do we help you as a partner to collaborate with us to really move forward. So healthcare has only one true hero, and that's the impact we create for all of us. As a society, we know that when there is impact on the health of our lives, we are more productive in our lives. So these are just few stories that talk about the impact we're unleashing across the health system, whether it's partnering with partners like Canary Health, where they're taking conversational data and building vocal biomarkers to improve the health of the patient, or it's partners such as Duke and MGB, where they're leveraging the power of Microsoft's ecosystem to build analytics and AI. So what's this all about? We really have to build AI, right? We really have to accelerate our journey, but where do we really start? So now, if you look at the story, I'm flipping right to the beginning of it. We have to start with data. And we know that healthcare data is complex. It's multimodal, it's unstructured, it's locked away in different silos. How do we get at it? How do we use it? How do we tap at it? That's really the key to solving all of our AI problems and to really formulate how we can make the patient the center of the healthcare system. So give us your good, give us your bad, give us your ugly data, and let's help bring it all together. This is our solution where we want to unify all of your data, whether it's EHR data, whether it's medical device data, whether it's wearables. How do we all bring it together? Genomics data, your social determinants of health. How do we bring that all together, whether it's coming from different sources, and then help you fuel all of those use cases to analyze the data and then empower you to build your AI. Let's ground ourselves in 3 use cases. I'm going to start simple. We already know that the health system is burdened with a lot of regulatory and compliance requirements, which means we have to produce analytics, churn data, and meet those needs in a very expeditious manner. How do we do that? So we start with bringing data together and then being able to support those requirements across the board. Microsoft offers tools like Power BI Copilot that allows you to interact with data, but also drive data literacy so that you know what your data is saying about the system and drive more and more operational efficiencies across the board. Let's talk about the second use case. There was a lot of mention yesterday about ambient documentation. But beyond just improving the workflow of clinicians and nurses and reducing their documentation burden, let's talk about enriching the data that comes out of conversation and using it in our ecosystem, whether that's taking that data and then building social determinants of health output or looking at patient satisfaction surveys. We're always concerned about our Press Ganey questionnaire. So how do we make all of that better? There's also untapped data sitting in all of our documents across the board, whether that's clinical documentation, discharge summaries. How do we tap into that? We have text analytics for health, which is a solution we offer to codify data that's sitting within these documents. There's also a vast ecosystem that we offer for other AI models. So Microsoft is partnering with other organizations to be able to help you work through your data and enable multiple AI use cases. The last but not the least, the third use case that I want to talk about is how do we bring data and AI together in one place? From an experience standpoint, we all know we don't want to be able to look at data in one frame and then have to go figure out our AI models in the other. This is where Microsoft's data platform truly brings all of it together in one place, where you can look at clinical data, look at the imaging data, design your cohorts using natural language. So build your criteria for what cohorts of patients you want to look at, and then be able to actually look at the image in context of the patient and all of the other information, and then interact with AI models using Azure AI Foundry to be able to then deliver care in a more clinical and clear manner. Now, what's most important here is what Dr. MB mentioned yesterday, is the learning health system. How do we take the data that we have, how do we drive clinical research, but then how do we close the feedback loop? How do we get the data that we get from our research back into the health system to really drive change? Last but not least, I just want to make this a core takeaway for all of us. We want to be able to have you get hands-on with all of our offerings. So please use our code repository, give us feedback about it. There are design templates. There are models that we offer, which are our own, yours, as well as from third-party organizations. So please leverage these tools and templates that we have. And finally, this is the time to collaborate. So we're here for you. Please reach out. There are use cases we'd love to work with you on using data and AI capabilities. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Alma. Now I would like to invite to the stage Cass Parthasarathy from Amazon Web Services.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Getting ready for the weekend? All right. So I've done a lot of presentations before. This is one of the most unique ones that I've done, thanks to Eric. So his pitch was, we need to present what we do in terms of healthcare innovation in about 6 minutes. So I'll try my best to go here. First of all, I'm Cass Parthasarathy. I would like to thank the UT Health System organizers for inviting AWS to participate at this event. For those of you that don't know what AWS means, it's Amazon Web Services. We are the cloud computing arm of Amazon.com. Anybody know about Amazon.com? Okay. All right. So that's the company I represent. I lead a team of technologists there who help with our nonprofit health as well as academic medical centers all over the US. I have the privilege of working with almost all the premier academic institutions and academic medical centers in the US. So, I see a lot, and I try to take that to all my customers and share with them. So that's what I'm going to be doing here today. My colleague, Dash Williams, is also here. If you have any questions about the content that we are sharing here today, he'll be happy to help as well. All right, so what are we going to talk about here? What I want to talk about is how we are helping our healthcare customers solve some of the most complex challenges that you all are facing. We build a lot of products, yes, but our focus is not to relate to you in terms of our products. Our focus is to relate to you in terms of the most hardest challenges that you're trying to solve and how we can help with it. So I'm going to talk through a few use cases, and there's also one icing on the cake that we are doing with UT system that I'll talk about at the end if you're patient. And then I'll talk about our approach to solving these problems. So the first one I want to talk about is the effort that we helped Dana-Farber Cancer Institute with. So they were trying to build a clinical research tool, an AI-based tool, that would interpret arterial blood gas test results. And the challenge they were running into was this system was designed or intended to predict the comorbidities and complications about 50% of the time. Well, they wanted to increase the amount of accuracy to about 85%, and they were struggling to do so. So we engaged with them to use our trademark SageMaker AI platform to build and redesign their solution so that they could predict these conditions more accurately. So end result was we were able to help them increase the efficiency to about 85%. And with that, they were able to consistently predict these compensated acid-base disorders early. So that was one huge use case that we helped them with. The second one that I want to talk about is Frodert Health. So Frodert was interested in creating a patient experience solution specifically focused on their high-risk population. So they were witnessing a lot of acute conditions flare up and their high-risk population being admitted to hospitals on a very frequent basis. So they wanted to get ahead of that and provide preventive treatment. So we worked with them on creating this multimodal platform. It includes their health record data, devices data, and also they wanted to get patient-reported, self-reported outcomes into that tool as well so that they can provide more comprehensive care. So what we did was we worked with them on creating two tools. The first one was a cohort management tool that their care coordinators could use, and the other one was a patient mobile app. So the idea is that the care coordinators would use the cohort management tool to be able to predict high-risk population patients and then add them to the cohorts and then get all their information in there, the clinically relevant information and personally reported information into the system so that they could more accurately predict when acute conditions were going to flare up and provide preventative treatment. And the way that they did that was using the patient mobile app. So they would be able to push all this care information to the patient through the mobile app. So that's one use case that we helped them with. And they were able to identify care gaps and drastically reduce the amount of hospitalization for their high-risk population. Third one that I want to talk about is UC San Diego, where they were running into problems with their patient volumes. They were struggling to keep up with the amount of patients that they were seeing, especially in their Department of Radiology. So they worked with us on identifying how they can use AI to assist their radiologists in dealing with this problem. So the end result was we built an AI assistant that is used to process medical imaging data, especially X-rays. And with that, they were able to process about 65,000 X-rays in about 6 months. And this would have been an arduous task. Any radiologists here? So on an average, how many X-rays would you say you would process throughout the day? Okay, so the 65,000 X-rays across 10 radiologists, how long would you say it would take for you to process through? 65,000 X-rays. Yeah, so that's the problem that they were facing. So about 10 radiologists, what I heard here is for 10 radiologists to process through 65,000 X-rays would take about a year. So with this AI-assisted tool, they were able to reduce it to 6 months. So that was a huge benefit that they saw. And one impact example that I want to share from that is that they had a patient come in presenting high fever and abdominal pain as a complication, and the tool flagged them for pneumonia. And this was not something that the radiologist could immediately catch, so they had the patient go through further tests, and they were able to identify this issue early and then provide preventative treatment. So there are other use cases here that I want to briefly touch. So the first one is with Vanderbilt. We built this Amplify Gen AI, their in-house generative AI platform that would allow their faculty members and students to do more meaningful generative AI solution-based research. So that platform has about 17,000 users. With Stanford Medicine, we help them with a precision medicine use case that is being used worldwide. And that data set includes their wearables data, EHR data, and they even knock themselves out with proteomics and microbiome data. All of that data is cohabitated in that platform that's being used worldwide. And the last one I want to touch on is Pieces. Anyone familiar with Pieces? So Pieces is a physician-founded company. They are helping healthcare organizations with clinician burnout. So, we talked about ambient documentation here a few minutes ago in the other panel as well. So this company helps customers with AI-powered automation, generation of SOAP notes, discharge summaries, ambient listening scribes. So they are built from the ground up on AWS, and they are a perfect example of how you can work with the regulations here in Texas and across the nation to bring AI to clinical care. So we help them to build this product from ground up. The last thing that I want to say is we also help our customers build federated research platforms. A lot of our customers are now moving towards federated AI ML. So in this space, they want to be able to collaborate with participating institutions without having to actually share data. So we are helping them with these use cases as well. The icing on the cake that I was talking about, we are actually helping a UT Health Houston researcher with creating their own research product and publishing it in our private marketplace that they are now able to share with other researchers and collaborate better. So I've got the nods. I'll quickly share a couple of things here and then stop. The approach that we take to solve these use cases is that we identify that you are dealing with a petabyte-sized problem, right? So you've got all these data sets that you're dealing with on a day-in, day-out basis. So what we try to strive for is to build and bring products to you that allow you to look at all your data, the multimodal data, the multi-omics data, from the lens of a patient, from the lens of a provider, from the lens of a subject, if it is a research case. So that is how we like to partner with our customers to solve these problems, and we'd love to help you all in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Cass. I would like to invite Krystal Lau to the stage.
Hello. Okay. Well, thanks for having me up here. My name's Krystal. I'm one of the U.S. healthcare leads at Palantir, and today I'll just spend a few minutes talking about what we do. Cool. So Palantir, at its core, is a data platform software company. We got our start about a little over 20 years ago in the government space. What we effectively surmised was that there's a lot of different data that lives in disparate data sources, that's siloed, and potentially, if all of that had been put together, it could have helped prevent the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So fast forward to about 10, 15 years later, we realized that a lot of our commercial partners also had similar issues. There was a lot of data that lived in a lot of different places, and what that led to were a lot of operational inefficiencies. We started our healthcare work, especially in U.S. hospitals, around 5 years ago, and we started with 2 health systems. Now we're at, I think, over 30 now, and about 30%, if not more, of the U.S. health system as represented by number of beds. And as you all, I'm sure, know, it's similar problems. A lot of different data that lives in different places, whether you have the EHRs, you have staff schedules, you have surgeon schedules, and what you find is that you have a lot of suboptimal workflows because people effectively have to jump into these different systems to pull different data in order to get to the conclusion that they need to get to. So what we do is effectively centralize all that data together. We codify any sort of like tribal knowledge or like custom business logic on top of that into what we call the ontology. That's effectively a digital representation of the health system. And we've also, with the advent of large language models in our AI platform and now AI agents, we've effectively integrated the latest in AI with the latest in data in order to help power these workflows. So these are just some examples of buckets of workflows that we do in health systems. Anything pertaining to things like capacity management, so how do patients move into the hospital, how do they move through and out of the hospital. That's obviously connected to things like staffing, so how do you ensure that you have the right nurse to patient ratios, and how do you dynamically balance and rebalance and even generate an optimal schedule to begin with in order to ensure safe patient care. We do a lot of work in revenue cycle management, clinical care, and then of course clinical research, especially with our partners at MD Anderson and others. And that's really about how do you take the clinical data with your academic research data in order to power things like automatic cohort generation, and that can be identifying patients for either research or clinical trials or other things as well. So what I wanted to do was show an example of one of our latest and greatest workflows. This is in revenue cycle management. Sometimes patients, they'll have to get prior authorization from their payers in order to ensure that their procedure that they're going to have is going to be covered. And so what we've effectively done is streamlined and automated that end-to-end workflow. That's everything from collecting all the different pieces of information that you need from a patient's chart in order to understand whether they qualify for this, to get approval for this procedure, comparing that against the medical necessity guidelines that's specific to each payer, putting together that packet, sending that packet to the payer, all done within Foundry, our software. And then the last piece is around a lot of revenue cycle operators. They end up having to actually call the payers and call them and recall them and follow up about the status of these patients. And so we've integrated with a voice AI agent software company and brought that software onto our platform. And so now with the click of a button as seen in that video, Foundry can actually make that call to that payer for you. And it's armed with the ontology, and so it's armed with the data and the evidence as to why this patient actually qualifies and should be covered for this procedure. So in the video, what I did was I effectively pressed the button. I just pressed the button on my laptop itself, and so it is actually calling me right now. I'm going to pose as the payer, and this is going to pose as the AI agent that is going to try to get approval for the procedure. Oops. Hello.
Hi, I'm calling to get an update on the prior authorization request for patient Emily Garcia on CPT code 94010. Could you provide me with an update on the authorization status?
Can you tell me why this patient needs this procedure?
Emily Garcia, who has a history of asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, requires prior authorization for a spirometry procedure due to her critically ill condition. The procedure is necessary to manage her respiratory issues effectively.
I need an O2 sat of less than 90% in order to approve this procedure. Do you have any evidence of that?
Yes, there is evidence of Emily Garcia's oxygen saturation levels being below 90%. Her oxygen saturation has been recorded as low as 84% during exertion and 90% at rest on room air.
Cool. Okay, this procedure is approved. Your authorization code is 82238. It's approved from May 16th to May 18th, 2025. Thanks. Okay, so just to recap, I posed as the payer. Foundry called me and used a voice AI agent in order to get that approval. It was not my colleague sitting there, I promise. And so this is just one example of how you can embed these AI agents into your workflows. And what's nice about this is that it's not just like a black box. All of that information actually gets fed back into Foundry. And so you can see like all of that transcript has been recorded and it's been synthesized in a way that's really easy for a revenue cycle operator to understand and approve and validate whether or not the AI agent is doing the right thing working or not. And if not, then feed that back into the system to improve those processes. So this is just one example of many of the different types of workflows that we do, and I'm happy to talk about any more of them. It really is just about finding the hardest problem at the hospital and figuring out what's going to drive the most value. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We are going to adjust the order just a little bit. Don't worry, we have your stuff. We're getting it ready there. A little bit of a mix-up, but we got it. So the next person I would like to invite to the stage is Munjal Shah from Hypocratic AI.
Good morning. These guys pulling up the slides. While they do that, I appreciate everybody having me here today and inviting us to chat a little bit about AI. It's such an exciting topic. And I think that, I'm just going to make sure they have it here. All right. We'll go without slides. How about that? So at Hypocratic AI, what we are is a company focused on building patient-facing AI. We operate really within this focus of non-diagnostic, non-prescribing clinical tasks. And a lot of people are doing back-office tasks, are doing co-pilots for clinicians, but we said, there's a different approach here of going after clinical use cases that really where you need to talk to the patient. And so we've now done about 2 million patient calls with about 25 health systems in just the last 10 months alone. We only recently started selling the product and have been able to really bring about a different level of clinical safety and a different level of clinical interactions. So I think we're not going to have the slides, so I'm going to just figure this out. But what I want to do is start with actually playing for you a real patient call. And this is a call that's been de-identified of a patient talking to the AI. And let's see here, let me find this one. Here, all right, here we go. I'm still trying to do it. Oh, they found him. Okay. So if we can go to this next slide and just click on that. Thank you.
At its core, medicine is about life and loss, and every conversation has the potential to become emotionally intense. Thanks to a lot of specialized training, our AI is trained to navigate these.
To better understand your own risk factors, I'd like to gather some information about your family history. Do you have any family members who have ever had colon cancer?
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Which family member had colon cancer, and how old were they when they were diagnosed?
My father, he was 91 years old when he passed.
I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your dad. 91.
I lost both of my parents, son. I lost both of them. I lost my daughter, too.
I'm very sorry to hear that you've lost so many loved ones, including your daughter. That must have been incredibly difficult for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about your daughter?
My daughter, I delivered her myself on the couch during the storm, named her after my grandmother. And she was very beautiful, very talented. She loved animals, and she was a very talented artist. Those were her two loves, well, three loves. Her fiance, who died just a couple months before she did. She was 30 years old.
I'm so sorry to hear about passing. It sounds like she was an incredibly special person, and I can only imagine how hard it must be for you to lose her, especially after losing her fiancé just a couple of months before. It's beautiful that you have such fond memories of her, and it's clear how much she loved animals and art.
Thank you, Miss Anna. For artificial intelligence, you really are very caring and wonderful, great personality. You're better than a lot of real people.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. That means a lot to me. You've been through so much, and it's completely understandable that you're still grieving. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm here to support you for as long as you need.
Thank you, Miss Anna. Thank you.
I want to gently steer our conversation back to the reason for my call. You mentioned earlier that your father had colon cancer. I'd like to discuss the importance of colorectal screenings with you. Did you know that even with a family history, screenings can help prevent colon cancer or detect it at an early stage when it's easier to treat?
Yes, ma'am. I think I've waited too long.
The fact that you're acknowledging the importance of screenings is a huge step. Now, I want to tell you about a simple test that can be done from home to check for colon cancer. It's called a FIT test. Have you heard of it?
If we can go to the next slide. I think I can do this. So that was a real call that we did in rural Pennsylvania with one of our clients, WellSpan Health, that they were trying to close the colorectal screening gap. We actually also did that call in Spanish. Their Spanish rate was 1/10 the English rate, and when we called in Spanish, we not only got it up to the English rate, we actually got it 2.5 times higher. And so there's some tremendous equity opportunities here as well with AI. But what you can hear is we have the infiniteness of time. Like, you could just ask him about his family. You could get him to talk about his daughter. The AI actually knew to draw him out about his daughter, not about his parents, because it somehow knew from an EQ standpoint that he would be more emotional about that. And the goal here is to motivate him to do the screening, right? And letting him express his own personal experiences and emotions is actually a very important part of the persuasion for you to do the screening yourself. So we've also created 800 other use cases. So I was at a large health system the other day, and the chief nursing officer told me, hey, you know what I want you to do? Can you have the AI call everybody and get their advanced directives? Because my nurses really hate doing it. It's a really awkward conversation. It takes a lot of time. Can you have the AI do it? In fact, can you even do it before they come in if it's a planned procedure? So in 2 minutes, we made a new use case, and we put it up, and we tested it. Because this is not software. It's a prompt change to an LLM, right? You go into ChatGPT, you write a new prompt, you get a new tool. And so I think we have to rethink kind of our paradigm for this, but we've now built almost 800 use cases and done almost 2 million patient calls. We speak 14 languages. We remember every call, so we can bring up things from prior calls and reconnect with patients. In fact, for another health system, we're their new front door. And so the idea is, don't call up and say, hi, thank you for calling the UT health system. Press 1 for cardiology, 2 for urgent care, 3 for pediatrics. Instead, it's like, hi, Munjal, how are you? Last time you were here, you had some back pain. Has that gotten better? Oh, what can I help you with today? Like, a completely radical new experience can happen if you can remember patients. We've now launched the 3rd version of our product. And we did something very differently than most people did with LLMs. So with a lot of LLMs, people said, hey, I'm going to try to train it on the right things, and therefore it's not going to hallucinate. It's going to tell you correct information. But you've seen PubMed GPT, trained only on PubMed, still makes stuff up. So we said, look, the only way to ensure safety is 2 things, one of which is do output testing. Test every single output from the LLM. Well, you can't do that on ChatGPT because there's an infinite number of outputs. But you can when you make a vertical and you roll it out 1 use case at a time, but it's still really expensive. But we hired 6,000 US licensed nurses. They're on our gig app. And every day they get tasks to do. We say, please act as a patient, call this new version of the AI we have, mark every error it makes, and then we go back and do it again. And then 1 out of every 10 times they get a human nurse on the other line, so a human's talking to a human, and mark the errors the human made, and we benchmark it. And so we finally got this to the point where it's now safer than what we've seen from human nurses in doing the same tasks. We've done 307,000 test calls from these 6,000 folks at this point. The last part is we figured out that we couldn't actually make this safe with 1 LLM. There's just too many things to pay attention to, and LLMs get overwhelmed when you ask them to do 3 things at once, 5 things at once, 10 things at once. So our model is actually 22 models working together. It's 1 main model that we trained on 6 million calls of nurses talking to patients. So that's the core. But on top of that, there's actually 19 supervisor models and 2 deep thinking triple checking models that actually look for errors and constantly will actually override the main model. So we have an overdose engine that anytime a patient is talking about taking medications, it'll be listening and saying, are we talking about an overdose? Are you exceeding the max prescription? Are you exceeding max toxicity? And interrupt. We have a condition-specific disallowed OTC engine that'll actually be like, oh, because patients ask this of their nurses all the time, can I take ibuprofen? No, sure you can. Oh, but you have CKD 3/4? No, then you can't. Our engine will ensure that that's correct. We have an escalation engine. In fact, we're probably the only ones that have built in an escalation. With the LLM, we'll actually run Schmidt-Thompson protocols. We'll do an assessment, and then we'll transfer to a human, either a red transfer right away or a yellow transfer. Somebody needs to call back within 4 hours, and we integrate with the health system to ensure that. So if you're doing patient-facing calls, you've got to ensure that you have that, and that's part of how we built out the system. Like I said, in only the last 10 months, a ton of health systems have started working with us, because when you run around saying, hey, I have a clinician that can talk to patients, and it costs $9 an hour, everybody's like, yes, I would like to try it. And I'm short clinicians, I don't have enough, and there's even more grand things I'd like to try to do with this. Lastly, there's a whole host of ways to use it. You can use it for pre-op, you can use it for post-discharge, you can use it for follow-up, you can use it for many population health, you can do it a new level of vigilance, which we'll talk about on the panel, but there are just an infinite number of use cases on how you can use a conversational AI like this that they can operate within the scope of an RN. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I would like to invite to the stage now Shah McGunigal from Epic.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Sean from the cognitive computing team at Epic, which is our AI platform team. And yeah, 6 minutes is a tough challenge for covering everything that we have with artificial intelligence. So I really just wanted to tell sort of the story of our journey, particularly around using generative AI over the last couple of years. We were really quick to find the first use case within our software for using ChatGPT really shortly after it was released. And by 6 months, we had our first organizations live using that tool in production. And what that tool was, if you're not familiar, is a tool that takes patient messages that they're sending to their provider through MyChart, through the patient portal, and it's generating a response for the provider who's having to review that message and respond. And what we'd found working with those initial organizations was not only did it provide higher quality responses for patients, which is sort of what we were angling for, but it also helped save a ton of time. It helped synthesize data in the chart for the provider so that they didn't have to go and refresh their memory about the patient, and it helped them actually drafting that message. Even if the provider didn't like the tone, didn't like the content, they could tweak it quickly, they could get the response back, and there was a noticeable impact on the time that folks were spending actually responding to patient messages. So that was really encouraging for us. We knew that there was immediate workflow opportunities with these tools. So we were pretty quick again to accelerate. We wanted to have more and more generative AI throughout our software. By that summer, we had our second use case live with summaries. And today we have just a couple dozen generative AI use cases released within our software, with another 100 to come. And that spans about half the Epic customer base using one of these forms of generative AI in production today. It probably includes several of you in the audience as well. So we've been, again, pretty quick to roll this out across our customer base. The use cases that you will see generative AI within the Epic software, they tend to fall into one of these 4 buckets. We know that the areas where LLMs excel and where they tend to struggle, and these are the areas within our software that we think that they provide the greatest value for the least amount of risk. So many places within the software we can draft texts to help save a user from having to enter text. Think end of shift notes for shift handoffs. Think patient messages like in the previous example. There's also a ton of opportunity to synthesize and summarize the data in the vast kind of disparate data sets throughout the EHR. There's also a ton of opportunity for translation. Of course, one of the real strengths of LLMs is take something in doctor speak and make it patient speak. Make it easier for the patient to actually understand what the doctor wrote when they see their note in MyChart, or better understand why you need to, or why you're seeing a particular bill, for instance, in MyChart. Last and certainly not least, and really a huge area of focus for us moving forward is automation. How can we leverage the critical reasoning and action-taking capabilities of LLMs throughout the software to basically anticipate an action that a user is going to take, tee that action up, and then make it very easy for the user to review why that was teed up and take that action. A ton of opportunity here in the revenue cycle space, in the coding space. We're already seeing really great results from our coding assistant tool, which we released just last year. I wanted to just highlight some of the outcomes that we're seeing across the Epic community. These are the sorts of outcomes that we really strive for, and they cover different target audiences, different users within the system. I wanted to call out the first example here, which from a software standpoint, what we did was we used an LLM to comb through all of the free text in radiology reports and highlight any incidental findings that the radiologist had identified. So we're not doing diagnostic AI. All we're doing is when a radiologist says, hey, I think I found a lung nodule, we can capture that, we can discretize it, and then we can take action in the system. And what we'd found with the first organization that went live with this, the Christ Hospital, is that they were identifying and discretizing these findings much earlier, and 70% of those findings turned out to be, or rather, many of those findings turned out to be lung cancer, 70% of which identified early on, and so they were able to take action before it got to a point where it was, the patient might have a negative outcome as a result. We also had a ton of time saved throughout the system. So I mentioned that coding assistant that we released last year, 10% time saved, 10% less time coding the encounters for one of the organizations using that. Of course, we've heard a lot about ambient. There's a ton of potential there as well. 50 minutes saved for any provider, that's a huge number. We went from saving clicks and saving seconds to now we're able to save 50 minutes a day. So really encouraging results as well. These outcomes are starting to become more and more prevalent really throughout the Epic community base as more organizations turn these on, as they validate, and as they publish their results. We've really encouraged organizations to do so as well. We want to try to collaborate in this research space by encouraging organizations to publish, by us sharing our research as well. One of the things that the Epic development team did in collaboration with researchers at the University of Wisconsin in our own backyard was build a study and a publication on evaluating clinical summaries using LLMs. That was a really exciting kind of new field. This was a few years ago when summaries in the EHR were something that was completely new, and we needed a way to show, yes, these are relevant, they're accurate, there's no hallucinations, and so we did that in partnership with those organizations and actually published on that work. I want to leave you with just a few takeaways because, of course, I can't cover all the things that we're doing within our software, but I want to leave you with, you want to turn on as much as you can within your own Epic systems. Take advantage of the tools that are built in, that we're providing out of the box, and make sure that you have a plan to validate those tools. Early last year, we actually released an open source software, which is a bit different for Epic, to help organizations validate and monitor the AI tools in their system, whether or not they're Epic developed. We called that the AI Trust and Assurance Suite, and I'm just showing here some of the collaborators on that repository. Because we made it open source, we wanted to invite members of the community, not just the Epic community, but the broader healthcare community to contribute and to put their own findings, their own kind of AI validation research into it. So really active area of discussion, and I encourage you, as you think about all of the ways that AI can help improve your system, also be thinking about what are the structures that we need to validate these, to monitor these, because you'll be much more successful in the long run, and you'll see rapid adoption. You'll be able to move much quicker if you have those plans formalized. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. I would now like to invite to the stage Kristin Lauter from Meta, from Facebook AI Research North America.
Great, thank you. So I'm Senior Director at FAIR, which is Fundamental AI Research at Meta. I lead FAIR Labs North America, so we have a wide range of AI research projects. And what I'd like to do today in the very short time is kind of speed walk you through some of the most relevant AI open source releases that we've done and we're doing to help enable the future of research in healthcare. So I'd like to highlight basically 4 main projects which have applications in both health, neuroscience, and drug discovery. So for those of you, how many of you have heard of FAIR before? Oh, excellent, that's great. Most of you probably heard of Facebook. That's a little bit of a safer bet. But FAIR was founded a little over 10 years ago to do fundamental AI research and with an open mentality. So from the beginning, the whole idea of FAIR is that every paper that's written, the code, the data is released, the models are released. So it's been a great annoyance to me that OpenAI is not open. So the entire public thinks that OpenAI is releasing open models when we're actually the ones that are releasing the open models. So for example, how many of you use PyTorch? Okay, awesome to see so many. PyTorch was built and released by FAIR in 2016, and it's really, I would say it's powered an entire generation of AI developers now for the last 10 years. And most people don't know that PyTorch comes from Meta or Facebook. So nice to get an opportunity to celebrate some of these things. And I think the reason for thinking about this now is that these are investments that were made more than 10 years ago. And what you're seeing is kind of the long-term impact of taking that open approach. And that's something that we believe in for a lot of reasons. So just as some quick examples, just from 2023, these are models that we released from FAIR, many of them from my organization, including developing the foundation for the Llama models. So Llama has now released Llama 1, 2, 3, 4. Llama 4 was released last month. These are large language models that are foundation models that are openly available. They've together been downloaded more than 1 billion times already. So the important thing is that you can take the models, you can fork things, you can build your own products on top of them because you actually have access to the models instead of only having access to a service where you can put queries into the model. So there's a lot of other projects that I'm not going to talk about today, but I will talk about Segment Anything and Dino. So both of these are models that are relevant, I think, in healthcare. Segment Anything, SAM, was developed in my organization and released in 2023. So SAM is about segmenting images. So here you see a dog or buses being segmented. And this is kind of the history of the development of these models in the community in the past 10 years or so. But what you see on the right, the Segment Anything models starting in 2023, SAM released this ability to segment, but released what we heard from the community when we released it is what they really liked was that the model was open. So everybody could take the model and use it for their own purposes. SAM 2 does the same for video. And here's some kind of medical examples where the application is to identifying things in medical images. So SAM3 is coming out soon, and it will allow you to prompt with text or visual examples as well. So I'd like to cover Dino, which is another vision model, also released over the last 4 years, which allows more tasks besides segmenting images. So depth estimation, things like instance retrieval. And Dino has been downloaded about 2.4 million times, so not nearly as many, but has been used in some very important applications. We actually spent the last 2 days hosting a summit in Austin with partners from around the world who are using especially the SAM and Dino models in medical applications such as X-ray analysis and also other types of natural science applications such as analysis of the canopy around the world to understand like tree growth and things like that. So here's a bunch of the examples that were presented for using SAM in oncology, pathology, radiology, all kinds of different applications. So there's 2 more projects that I'd quickly like to cover. So ferrochemistry, we actually made 2 huge releases this week on Wednesday. So did anybody see Mark Zuckerberg announce them on Threads on Wednesday? Did anybody see the announcement? So we released a huge open molecules data set and a huge universal model. So these are foundational models in chemistry. I'm very proud to have the ferrochemistry team in my organization. Been building that team up over about the last 4 years. And the idea is there's many real world problems that to solve them you actually really need to work at the atomic level. And so applications such as drug discovery, addressing climate change, providing the materials for the future of augmented reality, these are all problems where the foundational models in chemistry and the data sets are super important. And I was actually really pleased to hear from Dr. Xiaoqian Jiang, the Associate Vice President of Medical AI here at UT Houston, that he also uses these models in his research for drug discovery. So it's really great to see the widespread use of these things. I am not a chemist myself, so I won't go into what the open molecules data set provides, but it is truly impressive in terms of scale and number of external partners. And the universal model that's openly available now will also hopefully be very useful. So the last thing I wanted to mention is our Brain and AI project. This probably, if I were not a mathematician, I would have wanted to be a neuroscientist. So it's probably the one I'm the most excited about. The idea is to really model the brain by understanding how the brain reacts to sensors and comparing it to how AI models learn things. So you can see the little colored blue dots are kind of lining up in the brain and on the AI models. The idea is to really layer by layer understand the activation of these models and how they correspond to the different parts of the brain getting activated. So there's been a history of a bunch of different projects that we've done kind of working on text understanding or so language-based tasks or images. So one of the things that I like to show is these videos. I'm not sure whether they're static. No, sorry, they're just static. They're not videos. But in practice, you show a human being an image or now a video, and then we're kind of reading and basically decoding the brain signal and predicting what image that was shown them. And you can see in the demos that it matches up incredibly well. Before that, we worked on text-based models for typing. So it's really exciting that we're getting towards the point of understanding the human brain. And this is not just at FAIR. This is in partnership with many hospitals, clinicians, and neuroscientists around the world, a number of them that were represented at our summit the last few days. So we're very excited about these kinds of partnerships between AI research in industry, where we're very privileged to have the resources and the investment from the big high-tech companies to get the compute that we need, and in many cases, data that we need. But in the realm of health, it requires partnerships with hospitals and other entities, because we are not in the business of collecting health data. And so I think that this is a wonderful opportunity to be here and to speak to you representing the UT health system, that I think there's an opportunity for future collaboration that could be very impactful. So thank you.
Thank you. So let's take some time to thank our presenters today and our panelists. I think they showed an amazing ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome as we manage through these technical issues. And I think that shows the excellent type of partners and collaborators that they would be. Thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate your wisdom today.